glorious Thursday morning, and you're watching The Sweat. I'm your host, Jessie Coffield. So much coming your way on today's show. We got baseball, we got college football, we got NFL football galore, plus exciting news for you guys. Once again, DraftKings is looking to mint a new millionaire in Week 3. So, for a $20 entry fee, you can take part in the NFL $4.5 million Fantasy Football Millionaire Contest. Of course, that comes with a top prize of $1 million, but also a seat in our Tournament of Champions contest in January. It's going to offer another shot at $1 million, guys. So check out the contest in the DK lobby. Now, speaking of football, let's kick things off with our NFL panel. DraftKings contributors Reed Fowler and Jeff Ulrich. Fellas, let's shimmy on over to the DK Sportsbook for Thursday night best bets. Need your favorite bets on the DK Sportsbook for tonight's Carolina-Houston matchup. So, Reed, Panthers are favored by 8 in this one. 2-0 team against a rookie quarterback. Will the Panthers cover?
This is a tasty barbecue sauce type game, Jesse, on a Thursday night, baby. No, like I actually do think Carolina covers here. They're fifth in league-wide PFF coverage grade. Like, the defense I did not think was going to play this well. But, like, they had matchups that were advantageous for the defensive side. But, boy, like, they held the Saints, who put up 38 on the Green Bay Packers, to just 11 for 22 passing and 111 yards, 2 INTs from Jameis Winston. And, look, this defensive line, which we'll get to in a little bit, has been great. And when you have a rookie quarterback in Davis Mills making his first start against these guys, I think it's going to be a long night. Laying 8 with Sam Darnold. The previous Sam Darnold would be a tall order, Jeff, but I do think they cover here.
Ooh, Jeff, do you like them to cover?
I mean, I'm just going to be glad when this game is over, Jesse. This one is just, it's gutting me in knots here with, rookie quarterback who wasn't good in the preseason. And then you've got, obviously, the Carolina Panthers on the other side have been outplaying their expectations by a long shot. So I'm going to say that the Texans cover this. I just cannot take Sam Darnold as a plus or as a -8 favorite on the road.
See, Jesse, we lose Jeff because he chose the Houston Texans to cover. The internet said this is the wrong thing, Jeff.
The internet said not today. So, Reed, I guess we're going to go to you. Let's talk about the game total for this one. It's on the lower side. It's sitting at 43. You liking the over or the under? The trend has been towards the overs here, but
Yeah, I do like the over, Jesse. Look, the 43, and we kind of saw this last week too, and two different teams, right, with the Giants and the Washington football team. Much better in terms of skill players on both sides as a total, right? But I do like the over. You look at Carolina, I think they can get off to a hot start. Defensively too, right? The Houston Texans don't really have a point of, an advantage over the Carolina Panthers. Panthers line is a little deficient. They have allowed pressures on Sam Darnold. We have seen him scramble quite a bit or just get a little bit hurried in the pocket. But at the same time, I don't trust this both teams to keep this to the under. We saw, again, last week, Thursday, the over hit, which was similar in this number fairly early, like between halfway in the third quarter. So although this is hard to take and swallow, I'm going to take the over in this one at 43. I think that number is just too low.
Follow this, pal. I'm back.
Jeff is back.
Oh.
Jeff, you can finish your thoughts, and then we're talking about the total here sitting at 43.
For sure. Again, I mean, I won't say too much more about the line. It really just comes down to, I don't know what's going to happen in this game. There's a lot of variables with Davis Mills, but I'd rather take the points. I don't really trust that this is the true Carolina Panthers, this elite defense, Sam Darnold, kind of just being the super efficient, like Drew Brees, like quarterback. I'd rather take the points there with the Texans. The bet I really do like in this game, actually, is the under. You look at Carolina over since Matt Rule took over. They are 7-11 at hitting overs, so they are not good at hitting overs. They've been a slower paced team. Definitely, again, you've got Davis Mills, probably not going to be throwing a ton. I really do like the under here at 43 points. This line has come down a bit, but the under 43 is one of my favorite plays.
All right, guys. Yeah, Davis Mills making his first start in light of the Tyrod Taylor injury, and Sam Darnold has been pretty good to start the season with his new team. So, Reed, what's a quarterback prop that you like in this one?
Yeah, I'm going to stay away from the Davis Mills. It's tempting. The over 211.5 passing yards, maybe out of necessity. But no, I'm going to actually stick with Sam Darnold here. Over Jeff, 6.5 rushing yards at -115. 6.5 rushing yards. Jeff could go 6.5, could go 7 yards potentially. Well, maybe not, but like I think Sam Darnold can. I think this is too low. I think he can do this on one scramble. But I mentioned the offensive line has allowed some pressures on some lesser than stout defensive lines like the Jets, right? We've seen that in game one, the Saints as well in game two. Like Sam Darnold isn't rushing as much as he was last year, but he hit his over rushing prop 5 of 8 times last season. And if he can get 2 rush attempts, right, like that's it. He's got to average a little over 3 yards in both of those. I can see some design runs, or if he gets flushed out of the pocket once or twice, they bring an extra man on the blitz. I could definitely see him picking this up. Over 6.5 is too low.
All right, what do we think, Jeff? Which quarterback prop do you like, even though I know you don't like any of them?
Well, it's just this game. I mean, this game could be so slow. You know, Sam Darnold might only throw 25 passes if Carolina gets out in front early, so it's hard to take the overs on his, but I don't really want to take the under because he's been playing well. I am going to hit up that Davis Mills prop and go over 211.5 passing yards. Again, if this game goes to how the line is telling us, Houston's going to be behind late. They're going to have to force Davis Mills into throwing. He does have an elite wide receiver in Brandon Cooks, who's got a pretty good matchup against some younger cornerbacks. He's got good pass catchers out of the backfield. I think at the very least, you're going to see Davis Mills approach this number, and I would much rather be on the over side of it. Again, I don't have any hard takes on this one, but I think you got to go over Davis Mills just because that total is so low for an NFL starting quarterback.
All right, Jeff, what's another prop bet that you like in this one?
Well, probably my favorite prop of the night is going to be Robbie Anderson, over 43.5 receiving yards. Again, this is very much a Cooper Kupp sort of Robert Woods situation that's developed with the Carolina Panthers receiving core to start the year. DJ Moore getting all the love. He's got 19 targets. Robbie Anderson only has 9. But guess what? Robbie Anderson led this team in targets last year. He's an elite wide receiver too. This will balance itself out. We are getting an insanely low prop on Robbie Anderson here. This is an elite wide receiver. He's got speed. He's definitely not going up against an elite pass defense. Again, Sam Darnold's not going to be under pressure tonight, so if they do drop him back to throw 30 plus times, you know, he's going to have time. This is just a buy low spot for sure. 43.5. I was just shocked when I saw this number. This is an easy over for me.
Reed, what's a prop bet that just stood out to you?
Yeah, the reason why I think I like DJ Moore a little bit more, although Robbie Anderson, I think it's a great call by Jeff, is that Vernon Hargreaves III has struggled this year in pass coverage, and DJ Moore, they're using him a lot closer to the line of scrimmage. We see that with Mike Williams at the Chargers, that get these guys the ball closer to the line of scrimmage. They're much more efficient as opposed to trying to get the hero ball. But the prop that I like the most is a guy who hasn't played yet for the Houston Texans, and Anthony Miller, over 2.5 receptions at plus 110. I think there's some variance that we don't know about Davis Mills and that we don't know how Anthony Miller is going to play in this game. But Danny Amendola, I don't think is in, right? I think doubtful, and I think he's already ruled out, right, Jeff?
I'm pretty sure he's been ruled out.
Yeah, Nico Collins.
Double check that, but he's very, very, very questionable, and I'm pretty sure he's not.
Doubtful does not lead to, especially on a short week for Danny Amendola, who decided to play like last second. With the Houston Texans, he's out. Nico Collins is out for 3 to 4 weeks with a shoulder injury. So that leaves Brandon Cooks, Chris Conley, and Anthony Miller. Over 2.5 receptions in the slot. That's where you're going to have to operate. This Carolina Panthers defense can get to Davis Mills. They've been able to get to the quarterback in the first 2 weeks. They can get to Davis Mills. And if that's the case, it's either those 2 tight ends and Jordan Akins and Farrell Brown. Good luck trying to figure that out. I like Farrell Brown a little bit more. But you got Anthony Miller there. I could see him getting to these zones, he's pocketing the zones. And 2.5 receptions, I think, is too low for a guy that they brought in to essentially be that guy in the slot.
All right. Slate approved pick time. What is your favorite bet for tonight's game, Reed?
Yeah, it's going to be DJ Moore. I mentioned Vernon Hargreaves isn't. I think that's going to be a little bit overmatched for him, for DJ Moore. I got DJ Moore close to 8 receptions, just under 100 yards, and probably scoring a touchdown tonight.
All right, Jeff, Slate approved bet pick.
Well, that'll be good for my fantasy team where I have DJ Moore, but I'm going to go under the total in this one, 43 points. Again, the under is 11-7 under Matt Rule with the Carolina Panthers. Their defense is playing well, and maybe the defense regresses, but it's not going to be tonight because Davis Mills is starting on the other side. This one could just be ugly, and Carolina will play slow if they get ahead. So I really like the under 43 here.
All right, thanks, guys. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the showdown contest for this game. In the meantime, we're obviously just starting week 3 tonight, but it's never too early to look ahead to the end of the week. So Adam Kaufman caught up with our Cowboys insider Nick Eatman to see how Monday night's Dallas-Philly game is shaping up.
So, Nick, coming up on Monday, it'll be the final game of Week 3. Dallas, after being the first game of Week 1, final game here on Week 3 against Philadelphia. Regardless of how it may have felt in LA, physically, you will be home in Dallas for this game. What should we expect against a team that is also 1-1 and so far has played very good defense?
Well, I mean, if you love football, you watch it from start to finish. If you don't want to do that and you got to do stuff around the house, turn it on about 10 o'clock Central Time or whatever. It'll be a close game in the fourth quarter, and they'll be, duking it out to try to win the game. That's what I expect. That's what an NFC East game is. It doesn't matter if the NFC East is up or down or in the pack or whatever it is. These games are tight. Look at the Giants and Washington just the other day. Same type of thing. We don't expect their records to be as close, but Cowboys and Giants could be completely different this year, and they're going to have a tough game. Cowboys and Eagles this week, same thing. I just think it'll be a battle on Monday, and also these games, now Monday night, I know the Packers kind of pulled away, Monday night to beat the Lions, but I think for the most part, Dallas and Philadelphia, it'll be a battle, and I expect nothing short of that this week.
Eagles are banged up. They're young. They've got a couple of hurt veteran Pro Bowlers as well. So what can Dallas hope to exploit here?
Well, I mean, with Brandon Graham being out defensive end, I mean, that's certainly going to hurt them. And, I know Fletcher Cox is still Fletcher Cox and they'll get after him. I mean, I think that you've got to figure out ways, you just pick on someone. That's kind of what you do. I mean, this sounds like, you're not trying to like bully a kid like, the Cobra Kai did to Daniel, but you do find it, you do find a spot and you say, all right, where can we exploit it? And that's what they did against the Chargers. That right tackle that was replacing Brian Bulaga. I mean, Micah Parsons, they just kind of wore him out as the game goes on. So you find a weak spot, you find a corner or a safety or a linebacker mismatches, and then you go and that's what they can do. And that's what you can do when you have 4, 5, 6 weapons on offense like the Cowboys seem to have.
All right, look, if we're going to close this out with Cobra Kai, we know that if you're building a fantasy lineup, Miguel's going to be a stud for you. Who's going to be a star for Dallas coming up in week 3?
Let me figure out here. Let me think about it. I think let's go with Zeke. Let's go with Zeke on that one because I do think Pollard's going to get, we'll start looking at him, and I think there'll be a lot of more inside runs there. I expect them to get down to the goal line. A lot of pass interference, and that's the thing about the Eagles. They've had some pass interference penalties that can get you down inside the 5, inside the 1. I'm going to go with Zeke as a pretty good play there.
We are back. You are back. I'm Jessie Coffield, and I'm joined by DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich and Kenny Ducey to talk about their favorite plays for the Carolina-Houston DFS Showdown contest. So, Jeff, who's going to be your captain in this one?
I really think there's 2 players who have a shot at kind of getting a bonus in a big game in this matchup, which is going to be an ugly matchup, and it's Brandon Cooks and Christian McCaffrey. I'm going to go, let's roll the dice here, and let's save the money, and let's go with Brandon Cooks because, the one thing the Carolina Panthers haven't faced is like a really elite wide receiver 1. I mean, Corey Davis, I guess week 1, you could kind of call him that, but he did go for 2 touchdowns, and Brandon Cooks coming in, he's going to get targets in this game, and I know it's Davis Mills throwing him the ball, but when you have a team projected to be down late, they're 8-point underdogs, the targets should be there for Brandon Cooks. Regardless of those targets can be caught or not, we're going to have to play the variance game, but I do like going with Brandon Cooks here. If he gets that long touchdown, if he gets the bonus, I just don't know if there's going to be that much volume on the other side. So I think Cooks is kind of on an island here, and it'd be on an island, I mean, in a good spot because he's one of the few plays who I think have a big chance at a big night in this one.
All right, Kenny, who do you want to captain?
Yeah, I'm with you, Jeff. I really like that call with Brandon Cooks. I was just looking at some PFF grades ahead of this one, and he graded out very well. He's had a very, very good season, and he should be getting a lot of the ball. But I can talk about someone else here who I think is worth captaining, and that's David Johnson. Yeah, David Johnson, the guy who used to be a fantasy stud with the Arizona Cardinals. He had that one year where he was the number 1 pick. He should be leading the backfield for Houston. And I think in a game where Houston doesn't want to throw the football that much with an inexperienced quarterback, they could go to David Johnson. He's $8,100 in your captain spot. He played in 45% of the snaps last week. Of course, Mark Ingram's still leading the season-long snap share count. But when you look at the matchup here, again, it's pretty good against the Carolina defense. It hasn't really faced much of anything. The Jets were able to run the football decently against them in week 1. And, obviously Alvin Kamara had a decent game in week 2, but, the both passing offenses really struggled. I think David Johnson can have a good one here. And you also really want to get Christian McCaffrey in your lineup. That's certain. You want to get McCaffrey and Darnold in there, right? So the way to get all those high-priced options in, I think, is to captain David Johnson. It's scary. He's only got, 18 total DraftKings fantasy points this year. But I think he could be in store for a big game with more usage against probably the softest run defense he's faced. I know that the numbers would tell you otherwise, but Carolina really just has not faced a ton of great passing offenses to really make it worth looking into these numbers.
All right, so who are you going to be stacking with your captain, David Johnson, Kenny?
Yeah, so this is an easy one for me. I'm going to go back to Brandon Cooks here. It's definitely doable at $10,000 with the way that you're able to save money with David Johnson, and the targets have just been outstanding. 21 targets over 2 games. Jeff touched on him a lot, but he's been outstanding running routes. PFF grading him out as an incredible wide receiver, over 75 pass offensive grades. So he's looked really good. He's also gone up against a decent secondary in Cleveland, and he caught 9 passes for 78 yards and a touchdown. And again, I mean, this is a game where you would think that Houston's losing and they're going to have to throw all game, so the game script would fit Brandon Cooks being your guy, and Carolina just lacks that really shutdown corner, I think, to make an impact. I think that Cooks goes off, he gets another 10 plus targets, and he's worth your money.
All right, Jeff, who are you going to be stacking with Brandon Cooks? Not David Johnson, are you?
It's not David Johnson, although I really don't mind where Kenny is going with this, because I think David Johnson and Brandon Cooks have the chance to lead the Texans in targets tonight. I'm going to save the Davis Mills topic for the next question. I'm going to say you should be stacking Brandon Cooks with Christian McCaffrey, because as I mentioned off the top, I think these are the 2 high scorers of the night here. I know Christian McCaffrey is expensive, but you do save that extra cash by putting him in the flex with Brandon Cooks. Look, there's no game script where Christian McCaffrey doesn't get heavy usage tonight. If somehow they're behind, Sam Darnold has targeted this guy with relative just every down, and they've had a very good connection. Sam Darnold has been very efficient on those, 70% completion rate. If they're ahead, they're going to be rushing against a Houston rush defense who's scaring nobody. So I think that you pair those 2, Cooks and McCaffrey. How you want to deploy them in the captain versus the flex is up to you, but I like going McCaffrey in the flex for that saving money. And again, you play the variance game and lower ownership with Cooks in the captain spot.
All right, Jeff, Davis Mills, first NFL start. What are the chances that you're willing to roster him?
Oh, the chances are 100%, Jesse. If I'm using Brandon Cooks in my captain spot, I got to use Davis Mills. And look, this game is ugly. We get it. Davis Mills does not look good. I know that. But he's an NFL starting quarterback, and he's $3,000 cheaper than Sam Darnold. So what do we really need him to do tonight? We may not need him to do that much. Sam Darnold may not even throw that much in this game if Christian McCaffrey is out there racking up yards. Davis Mills is going to have some prevent defense to work with. He's rushed for 3 touchdowns his last year at college. It's not like this Carolina defense is that stout against the pass. We saw Zach Wilson tear it up a little bit in garbage time week 1. I think Davis Mills could achieve something similar, and that's fine. I don't care if Houston loses this game for daily fantasy. I just care that Davis Mills gets those opportunities. He's got an elite wide receiver in Brandon Cooks. I think he gets there from a fantasy point standpoint. I really do. And by that, I just mean he gets to 15 plus, which could be the high score at his position for the night. So I do like using Davis Mills.
All right, Kenny, you're rostering Brandon Cooks and David Johnson. Do you have to stick Davis Mills in there?
Yeah, I don't think you do, Jesse. I brought up earlier the PFF grades for all the players, and I mean we don't have to just base our whole analysis off of that, but it was hilarious to me to see that Davis Mills graded out as a 32.7 in the 35 snaps that he played last week. Pretty bad. And look, this is not a guy that is a 3-year starter who's had a lot of game experience in college. The guy played 5 games last year for Stanford, 7 touchdowns and 3 picks, 66% completion percentage, 1,500 yards. I mean, that's okay, but he wasn't a guy that lit up the world at Stanford, right? So I don't think you're coming in here with this guy had a lot of success in college. Maybe he can find chance that Brandon Cooks, just with the high volume of targets, he could have 12 catches, 70 yards, maybe sneak a touchdown in there, and he's still worth rostering without Davis Mills. You don't.
All right, we're going to move on because Kenny is his internet. Kenny, I feel like you need to upgrade to 5G or whatever. Like, you might have to just do it.
How about 3G?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, maybe just upgrade from the rock that is your router. Jeff, what's your favorite value play tonight?
Oh, man. Okay, my favorite value play, Reed brought this guy up. It's Anthony Miller at 1K. Danny Amendola is ruled out tonight, and I do like that call. I do like the receiving prop that Reed was going over on as well. You look at this Houston receiving core. We went over Brandon Cooks, but there's a reason we like Brandon Cooks so much tonight. It's because there's nobody behind him. Chris Connolly is just not really going to be out there doing much, taking like 1 or 2 deep targets. Anthony Miller is the slot guy. Look, this team traded for him to bring in some depth. Here's his chance. And even if he only gets 5 targets, again, could just be such a low passing output on both sides that, 3 catches for Anthony Miller would be massive in this game at 1K. So, again, I do like playing the narrative here, and the narrative is Carolina gets up ahead. Houston has to pass a little more at the end of this game. Guys like Miller, guys like Brandon Cooks, they get there through that route. I like Anthony Miller at 1K.
All right, Jeff, who's your absolute must-roster player tonight?
It's going to be Brandon Cooks. Again, I think that people look at this game and they think, okay, slow game. Carolina runs this one out. But let's not overlook this Carolina secondary, man. I mean, they gave it up to Corey Davis in week 1. They let Zach Wilson look the best he's looked in an NFL game so far. This is a gettable matchup for Brandon Cooks, the best wide receiver that Carolina has faced thus far in the year. A lot of this is predicated on Davis Mills, but when we don't know a lot about a game, when there's things that could happen and we got a guy we don't know more about, why not take a little shot at him? Because most people are going to be fading Davis Mills tonight. So give me Brandon Cooks as my must play, my favorite play on the slate.
All right. Thanks, Jeff, for carrying the rest of that segment. More football later in the show. And after this break, we're going to check in with our baseball panel on tonight's MLB slate. So we'll be right back. It's time to switch things up a bit with DraftKings contributors Gary and Thorne, Matt Meiselman, and Nick Fryer. We are ready for a little MLB price check. All right, let's start with the pitcher over 8K. Who you like tonight, Garion?
Yeah, there's not a ton of options on this 6:40 p.m. Eastern slate. Obviously, just 5 games, and also there's some serious concern about whether or not Pittsburgh and Philadelphia is even going to get played. They're expecting pretty much rain the entire night in Philadelphia, so Aaron Nola kind of seems like he might have been in a nice spot at a pretty cheap price tag for Aaron Nola, but I have my concerns that game actually gets going. So I think in that scenario, you're sort of left with Luis Castillo as being the best play on the slate. He's $8,900. He's been fantastic across his last 14 starts. He's got a 3.03 ERA, a 3.23 xFIP, and a 27% strikeout rate within that span of time. He's also coming off arguably his best start of the season against the Dodgers. Went 6 2/3 scoreless, 34.1 DraftKings points in that game. I don't know. Ownership might be high, although I think Lance McCullers is also going to carry quite a bit of ownership tonight, so I wouldn't worry about that too much on what basically is going to become a 4-game slate. Washington has also been a pretty good offensive team, despite trading almost anyone they possibly could at the deadline, but I think out of necessity, Castillo is a really good option tonight.
Yeah, Matt, 5 games, 5 pitchers over 8K on the main slate. Are you going with a guy in that slate?
Yeah, Aaron Nola, if he starts, is clearly my favorite option. I think this game does play, although like Arian said, there is a chance that it doesn't. And in that case, we will get very concentrated ownership on both Luis Castillo and Lance McCullers Jr. So it's really 2 separate scenarios. If Nola is pitching, I think you just go with Nola, even though he will be the most popular. His price at $8,500 for a home start against the Pirates is just far too low. I think he should be the most expensive pitcher on the slate by a significant margin. So if he's pitching, I think you just go with him and try to just get contrarian elsewhere. If there's no Aaron Nola, though, like we could see Castillo and McCullers 80% owned each or something crazy like that, because Nola's ownership is probably going to be that by himself, and it gets just divided up amongst everyone else, but primarily Castillo and McCullers, who are priced up in his range. So if Nola's not pitching, I don't really know what I want to do here, because everyone on the slate is going to be playing the same 2 pitchers. But if Aaron Nola is out there, I think he's the guy to go to.
All right, Nick, which pitcher over 8K are you vibing with?
Well, I know Steven Matz and Alex Cobb haven't got mentioned at all, but I think there's a reason with Cobb when he's going up against Houston tonight, as much as he's done well recently. And then when you look at Steven Matz, I know he did well against Minnesota last time. I can't really figure out how to gauge him. I would normally agree with the guys on Luis Castillo, but every time I've backed him this season, I feel like he's burned me. So I'm not going to back him tonight, which maybe is the reason you should back him. And then in the end, with Nola and the weather issues, it kind of leaves me with just one choice. And I know he's the highest priced guy, and I don't usually like to do this, but Lance McCullers is the guy. And when you look at how the Angels have done this month against right-handed pitching, they're bottom 3 in OPS, ISO, WOBA, WRC+, bottom 3 in all of those categories. I know they're at home, and they've been a little bit worse. I know it's a smaller sample size. They're a little bit worse there, too, so that does help in some capacity. And then when you look at the Angels, too, and their K rate against right-handed pitchers this month, they're 7th. So, and then McCullers has done well against them every single time. So I think you got to differentiate with the cheaper pitchers tonight, and then of course the hitters.
All right, how about a pitcher under 8K, Matt? More options here.
So the game that I like for these cheaper pitchers, and it's especially true if there's no Aaron Nola. So basically what I think could happen is that if Aaron Nola's not pitching, you get Castillo, McCullers, and then a lot of lineups that have a lot of Orioles and Rangers hitters, because those are the cheap ones, and you're going to need the savings to fit in those expensive pitchers. Even if Nola's pitching tonight, that might be the case. So I think getting your leverage there and playing Glenn Otto or Zach Lowther is kind of the way to go. Both of them, I think, are pretty substantially underpriced. Baltimore, throughout most of the season, is a strong hitter's park, but a lot of that has to do with how warm and humid it is in Baltimore through the middle point of the season. And that's not the case anymore into late September. We're looking at temperatures that are going to be in the 60s tonight and probably even lower than that going forward. So I don't think it's that big of a deal to be pitching there. These lineups obviously aren't good. So I think either of those guys is fine. I'll go with Otto. I think he's the better pitcher of the 2 at 6,700, but I think there's a strong case for both of them tonight.
Nick, a pitcher under 8K, who you going with?
I'm actually in lockstep with Matt on this one, as Glenn Otto is going to be the guy. And I know he's gotten rocked his last 2 starts, but this is a guy who's not a fly ball pitcher. I think he gave his first MLB home run. It was his last start that he did that. He's only given up 1 inning. And again, I know the start before that he still didn't do well, but we're not worried about fly balls with this guy necessarily at Camden Yards. And then when you look at the Orioles too, like I know they've been like decent. They're better at home against right-handed pitchers than on the road, but they're still not, like, they're middling at best against right-handed pitching. But when you look at their K rate, there is strikeout upside for Otto tonight. They have the 4th highest K rate against right-handed pitching this month.
All right, Gary, and which pitcher under 8K are you going with?
Yeah, round to Glenn Otto's. This is someone who has actually scored negative 12.2 DraftKings points in his last 2 starts. So even with limited options on the slate, I could see people just being afraid of someone who has been shellacked his last 2 starts. But as these guys were saying, you might have some leverage here just based purely on the fact that people are going to be stacking the Orioles tonight out of necessity. And Baltimore really can't hit right-handed pitching. That's been the case all season long. They are basically near the bottom of baseball in every single statistical category against righties. And also Otto, while he has been bad in those last 2 starts, as Nick was sort of alluding to, it's not like he's been giving up a ton of home runs. It's just that he's got a 560 opponent BABIP across these 2 starts. For the season, this is only 4 starts, but he still has a 3.10 FIP, and he's striking out 10.5 batters per 9 innings. So in a vacuum, those 2 numbers are actually really, really nice for a pitcher who's just $6,700. So I think Otto has some actual upside, and I think the Orioles just can't hit. So he's in a pretty nice spot.
All right, on the other side, Nick, talk to me about a bat over 4K.
Yeah, I know Michael Pineda is one of those cheaper option pitchers tonight, but this is a guy who I generally don't want to go him back, and I know he did pretty well against the Blue Jays last time out. The only guy that took him deep was Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and I'm not going to go with Vladdy tonight. I'm actually going to go with George Springer at 4.9K, and yes, it's because the batter versus pitcher numbers. 10 for 25 career against Pineda. I know it's a small sample size, but again, we're seeing 3 home runs and 3 doubles in that span, and I know Springer hasn't done well against right-handed pitching this month, but this is definitely an opportunity for him to have a get-right game because he was mashing right-handed pitching whenever he was playing this season before this month. And again, like Pineda, he just saw the Blue Jays last time out, so I don't necessarily feel comfortable with a guy who did well against a team that hits right-handed pitching well to go and have him replicate that kind of outing back-to-back starts.
All right, Gary, and where are you going?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about Jorge Polanco at $5,000. Nice piece on a slate like this because he has dual position eligibility. You can fit him in at second or at shortstop, depending where you're finding some value. He's pretty much been hitting any single type of pitching he's faced since the beginning of June, but I think it's important to note that since the start of August, he has a 170 WRC plus and a 1.013 OPS as a right-handed batter against left-handed pitching. Steven Matz has not pitched well his past 2 starts, and this Blue Jays bullpen is also very tired after 2 short outings by their starters the past 2 nights. So I think this could be an opportunity for the Twins to score some runs, specifically that top third of the lineup, which, despite them being 20 games below 500, is one of the more potent 1-2-3s in all of baseball. So I like Polanco a lot.
Matt, which bat over 4K are you going with?
I'm going to give 2 because they're basically the same kind of play. So Vlad Guerrero Jr. is the best hitter on this slate, most likely, but the second and third best hitters are probably not getting any attention, and it has to do with the pitchers they're facing. So you have Juan Soto against Luis Castillo, but if Castillo's chalk, then you don't see a lot of Soto ownership. And then the same is true for Shohei Ohtani against Lance McCullers. Those offenses as stacks, I don't think are in great spots. You'd be basically going to them just for leverage against highly owned pitchers. But Soto and Ohtani are good enough that even without that consideration, just playing them because of how great they are, I think that makes sense anyway. So I like both of them over the Toronto guys, mostly just as an ownership consideration, because while I do think the Blue Jays do have the highest upside of any offense tonight, I think everyone knows that. So it's not that I don't want to play them at all. It's just that I want to try to get some more contrarian hitters in there with them. And Soto and Ohtani are the 2 that jump out to me as the very clear options for that.
All right, let's get a hitter under 4K that you want to roster Garion.
Kyle Farmer is in a really nice spot tonight. He's $3,800. Patrick Corbin, it's crazy to say his season has somehow gotten worse his past 5 starts. You would think that would be impossible, considering how nightmarish it had been before that point. But his last 5 starts, 7.62 ERA, a 4.33 opponent WOBA in that span of time. And Farmer really has done all of his damage in 2021 against left-handed pitching. He's got an 836 OPS and a 238 isolated power against southpaw pitchers. So I think Farmer could be in a really nice spot, and he's someone who actually carries a little bit of upside, despite the fact that you probably didn't even know who he was 2 months ago.
All right, Matt, where are you going?
So I never thought that I would be talking about these kinds of players this season, but there are actually some other Angels hitters that I really like. Part of it is because they're facing McCullers, who I do think will be overly popular. But the Angels are really cheap. And if you want to play guys like Soto, Ohtani, maybe you want to play Vlad too, Bryce Harper, there's a lot of expensive hitters. So if you want to get some savings with some other hitters, you have probably the leadoff hitter for the Angels in Brandon Marsh. And the reason that I like him and some of the other Angels with some speed is that Lance McCullers actually, if there's one thing that he doesn't do well, it's limit walks. He does walk a lot of hitters, and it will allow opportunities for stolen bases. I like Ohtani for that reason, but Marsh is 2,200, probably in the leadoff spot. I think that that's a value play that would be obvious if McCullers wasn't a popular pitcher tonight, but because most lineups are going to have him in them already, I think Marsh goes overlooked. I think all of these Angels go overlooked. So this stack is going to have a hard time scoring 8, 9, or 10 runs, but even if they score 4 or 5, the pricing is good enough that that could still be worth having.
Nick, which hitter under 4K are you rolling with?
Well, I was looking at Farmer like Garion, but I ended up landing on Corey Dickerson at 2.5K. Again, going against Pineda tonight, we're doing a little mini Blue Jay stack here. Of course, he's towards the bottom of the order. And he's another guy that was doing well, obviously not as well as George Springer was, but in a larger sample size, was doing well against right-handed pitching coming into this month. Make sure you check the lineup tonight because I know Dyson played last night, and then Grichuk is splitting time with Dickerson too. So, of course, want to make sure that he's in there before you play him tonight. But he's done well against Pineda. I would expect him to be in there. Again, small sample size, but he's got a couple home runs and 3 doubles against him. So there's opportunity for him to get on base or driving in runs.
All right, thanks, guys. We are back to football after this quick break. The Sweat will return.
Clear.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Good job.
To our new NFL panel, DraftKings contributors Pierce Dietrich and Julian Edlow. Fellas, it is time for NFL Spin Move, where we put a DraftKings spin on the latest NFL news. So big news coming out of the Lone Star State. Davis Mills is getting his first start tonight for the injured Tyrod Taylor. So Pierce, how does he make the people some money? By exceeding expectations or doing what a lot of rookies do in their first start and struggling?
Probably the latter. I would bet against Davis in this game. His quarterback rating was 58 last week, and it wasn't really a terrible game script. They weren't forced to be one-dimensional. He just looked bad, going 8 for 18. He did take some shots down the field, but he didn't complete any of those shots down the field. His average completion, or the air yards on his average completion, was 5.8 yards. So basically, he's throwing these little dump passes, 1 to 10 yards. Guess what? Carolina Panthers, third best so far this season at defending those 10-yard passes. Some people might argue that, hey, Taylor Heinicke had a pretty good game on a short week, but Heinicke looked good when he subbed in, and he also played a pretty weak Giants team. Bet against Davis.
All right, Julian, do you want to bet against Davis Mills?
I do, and if you read my Best Bets article on the DK Playbook, you will see that essentially all of my teasers start with using the Carolina Panthers on Thursday Night Football. I do think that the Panthers should win this one big because they're going against Davis Mills, who frankly hasn't shown me anything. You look back in college, he played 13 games his last 2 games at Stanford, 18 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Like, is there anything special there to make you think that he's an NFL quarterback, particularly a starting NFL quarterback? No, you go to his preseason numbers, nothing great there. The last time that he got the longest look, last week of the preseason, 27 passing attempts. He went 10 for 27 for 106 yards. He threw 3 interceptions. Like, this guy's not good. We just don't, not everybody knows that yet because they don't know who he is. They haven't seen him. We are going to see that tonight.
All right, Jacoby Brissett was named the starter for Miami against the Raiders on Sunday. So, Jules, how does Brissett being under center change your outlook on this one? The game total down to 45.5 in Vegas.
Yeah, this was already one that I was kind of leaning towards the under in, and then you say no Tua for Brissett. We know that Carr is a little banged up. Gruden did term Carr questionable, but said that he expects him to play. So this is one I just don't see where much of the offense comes from for Miami, with Brissett under center against what is looking to be a pretty solid Vegas defense on the road. Yeah, this one, even with the total going down, I think it's for the right reasons. The under makes sense to me here.
Pierce, what do you think?
Carl was a full participant in practice, so I think they're going to be good to go. The thing I want to say is to stay away from the total. And I'm sorry I'm breaking the rules here, but this 4.5 spread just is crazy. It's shocking. I can't believe it. The Raiders' offense looks good. Their defense has played better. They've got extra days rest because of the Thursday night game. The Dolphins are without their starting quarterback. They just got beat 35-0 against the Bills team that didn't really look good. So when I'm shocked by these numbers, what I went to was Julian's Twitter account, checked out his betting splits, and as I expected, the public is all over this line with the 4.5 towards the Raiders, and the sharps are there as well. I imagine this line is going to go even higher. I think the time now is to take the Raiders in the spread.
All right, Justin Fields is also getting his first start in week 3 for an injured Andy Dalton against the Browns. Is he the change the Bears need to get the offense over that 19.5 team total, Pierce?
Yeah, Fields is going to have a big game. People like the Browns defense on paper. It looks good. Myles Garrett, they've got Clowney. But on the field, it's been a different story. There isn't any chemistry on that front line right now. They're not doing their assignments. They're not doing their pass rushing roles. Clowney's been the biggest defender. He's rushing too deep on his blitzes or as he rushes the quarterback, and that's opening up rushing lanes. It's also allowing the quarterback to step up in the pocket. But the rushing lanes is the big deal. That's going to allow Fields to just scramble all over. We saw Tyrod Taylor get a touchdown last week. Probably would have had a big game had he played in the entire game, but he went out. But we'll get to see Fields do that. Also, the Browns, 37% of the time are they stopping their opponents on third down. We could see Fields just running all over the field on third down.
Julian, do you like Fields to have a big game?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm quite as optimistic as Pierce. He's going to have a better game than Andy Dalton would have had in this spot, that's for sure, because he's a better quarterback, and the Bears just kind of stumbled into, having Fields as their starting quarterback, even though they refused to put him there without a Dalton injury. So, yeah, I think the Browns are going to win this game, but I think the Bears are going to see some encouraging signs that hopefully, if you're a Bears fan, leads to Fields just winning the starting job moving forward, because there's no question moving forward for this offense the rest of the season that Justin Fields is a significantly better option than Andy Dalton in the short and long term. So just give him the job. Will they get over the team total? Yeah, the Browns defense has been a little underwhelming. Houston scored more points than this in Cleveland. So yeah, I think that the Bears can get into the 20s in this game.
All right, sticking with that game, the Browns put Jarvis Landry on the IR. Does that scare you off of Baker Mayfield in DFS or some of the Browns totals in this one, Jules?
It doesn't scare me off of Mayfield, I guess, because I wasn't on Mayfield to begin with. I just don't think it's the best spot. The Bears defense is nothing special, but we know the Browns like to run the ball. So now with another receiver down, it's going to be more Nick Chubb. It's going to be more Kareem Hunt. And like I said, I think they win this game at home. But, yeah, I mean, the Bears are going to improve with Fields in there. So I just think it's a better game for the running backs and a better slate to just look elsewhere at quarterback.
Pierce, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with Julian. There was really no reason to play Baker before. There's no reason to play him now. Just not on this slate. Even if the wide receiver core was 100%, just on this slate, it doesn't look like a great spot. And as for the over-under, I think this helps the Browns. The Browns are better when they run the ball. They need to run the ball. This forces them to run the ball. It also opens up the play action. And in that play action system, sure, having Jarvis Landry helps, but really any receiver can work if the play action's working. So I don't think the offense is really going to skip a beat.
All right, thanks, guys. One more block to go here on the Sweat. Stick around, Jules. You're giving your favorite bets for week 4 of the college football season coming up. As promised, I'm back with DraftKings contributor Julian Edlow, and he's ready for college football best bets, getting your favorite sportsbook plays for week 4 of the college football season. So, Jules, big matchup in Chicago, neutral site for Notre Dame, Wisconsin. Wisconsin is 6.5-point favorites, 46-point total. What bet do you like in this one?
Yeah, this game confuses me, let's say. The look-ahead line here before the season was pretty much a pick 'em. I think Wisconsin was a 1-point favorite. Now, Notre Dame has certainly been a letdown this season, but they've still won all their games. And they kind of got a breakaway cover against a at least decent Purdue team last week for their first good-looking win. Now, Wisconsin was upset outright at home by Penn State in the opener, and then got kind of a meaningless win in week 2 and got a bye on week 3. So it's nice that they've had a long time to prepare for Notre Dame. That certainly favors them. But at the same time, Notre Dame is clicking, going 3-0. Both teams have been a letdown. So I don't know why this justifies this going all the way up to 6.5. I'm not going to bet the game, but if this gets to 7, I will take the touchdown with Notre Dame. It's funny. Notre Dame's ranked 12th. Wisconsin's ranked 18th and almost favored by a touchdown on a neutral field. Not that the rankings mean anything, but it's a weird game to say that Wisconsin deserves this much respect after doing nothing other than losing to Penn State, really. So I lean to Notre Dame if they get to a touchdown, and I think this will be a defensive game. So I'm looking at the under 46.5 there.
Okay, another ranked matchup in the SEC, Texas A&M visiting Arkansas. A&M, the road favorite in this one, so who do you like in this game?
Oh, I hate this game so much. I'm on Arkansas under 6 wins for the season. They play the hardest schedule in all of college football, so of course they are 3-0. 2 of those wins obviously expected against low-level competition, but they absolutely shattered Texas at home in that week 2 game. To kind of burst onto the scene in the rankings, and now they're a home dog to an underwhelming Texas A&M team. I very much hope that I am wrong for my own personal gain in the futures market, but I will take the 4.5 points with the home dog Razorbacks here for Arkansas.
Over to the Big 12, Oklahoma, big favorites against West Virginia. Can they cover the 17 points at home?
They can, but I don't think they're going to. Oklahoma has not shown up so far this season. They have won 76-0 victory over Western Carolina in a classic bounce back spot after beating Tulane 40-35 at home. They were 31-point favorites in that game. They almost lost that game outright. Then Nebraska, big rivalry game, but you're a 22.5-point favorite at home. That game, you're losing at points and only squeak out 23-16, win it by a touchdown. Not that West Virginia has been my favorite team so far, but they got a solid win as a 2-point favorite, hosting a ranked Virginia Tech team last week. They almost blew it, but they got there. They lost to Maryland in week 1, but the offense kind of got clicking a little bit against LIU in that week 2. Similar to Oklahoma, 66-0 meaningless victory to bounce back from a poor performance. But the way that Oklahoma is playing against a conference rival game, primetime Saturday night, more than 2 touchdowns, give me the Mountaineers here.
All right, Jules, give us an upset that you think we could see this weekend.
Yeah, it's not a big one. I don't think we'll see that many. I wouldn't be shocked if Notre Dame won, honestly, and that's a pretty big underdog right there. I'm going to go with Jessie Cofield's home Boston College Eagles,
Woo!
a slight 1.5-point underdog to Missouri. BC's off to a good 3-0 start, and SEC competition is never easy, but at least they are home in Chestnut Hill for this one. Phil Dracovic, the starting quarterback, a very talented quarterback for BC, likely done for the year with that wrist injury. They still managed to get by Temple pretty handily on the road last week. Dennis Grosel is a senior backup quarterback that has plenty of experience. He's certainly a drop-off from a talent perspective from what BC was hoping for this season, but he is good enough to get the job done. I think fly, Eagles, fly. They get this one done at Alumni Stadium.
Once an Eagle, always an Eagle. All right, love that pick, Jules. Now give me your slate approved, your favorite bet on the slate this week.
Yeah, favorite bet is going to be the nightcap South Florida goes to BYU, 23-point spread. I will play BYU on the first half, minus 13.5. You look at USF, they failed to cover against FCS competition last week. And the 2 games prior to that, I bet NC State against them, their only road game in week 1. NC State was up 24-0 at halftime, went on to win the game 45-0. Absolutely dominated the Bulls in their only road game. You look at their second game, they did cover. They backdoored against Florida, but that was at home. And the Gators were in a look-ahead spot to Alabama the following week. You want to look at the first half of that game against Florida? Not even close, 35-3 Gators. I don't think USF is going to show up on the road in the first half. And BYU has been rolling. They're 3-0, all Pac-12 wins. They're 3-0 against the first half spread this season. They led as an underdog against Utah. They led 16-7 at halftime. As an underdog to Arizona State, they led 21-7 at halftime. I think this one's going to be 21 or more points at halftime for the BYU Cougars.
All right, really good stuff, Jules. That is a show, folks. The fun doesn't stop, though. 3 Matt and Sims coming your way starting at noon with the Eagles at Chiefs. And make sure you tune in at 5 p.m. for the Slate with Adam Coffey.